your response to this revelation about the about what happened with AP in the U.S. government?
Well, it's part of a pattern. That's what's so frightening. And it's a pattern that we've seen with the use of the Espionage Act to essentially silence whistleblowers within the government, Kiriakou, Drake, and others, although Kiriakou went to jail on, pled out on another charge. The FISA Amendment Act, which allows for warrantless wiretapping, the National Defense Authorization Act, which allows for the stripping of American citizens of due process and indefinite detention. It is one more assault in a long series of assault against freedom of information and freedom of the press. And I would also, of course, throw in the persecution of Julian Assange at WikiLeaks and Bradley Manning as part of that process.
Well, Chris Hedges, you wrote in the recent article that was published, your article, Death of Truth, in Truthdig and Nation magazine. You also write about the significance of the Espionage Act and how often it's been invoked. And you say that it eviscerates the possibility of an independent press. So could you talk about the Espionage Act and how it also is somehow related to this AP story?
Well, it's been used 6 times by the Obama administration. It was written in 1917 and is our Foreign Secrets Act. It was never it was not designed to shut down whistleblowers. First used against Daniel Ellsberg in the Pentagon Papers. So 3 times from 1917 until Obama takes office in 2009. 6 times. And if you talk to investigative journalists in this country who must investigate the inner workings of government, no one will talk, even on background. People are terrified, and this is, of course, the seizure of 2 months of records, of AP records, is not really about going after AP. It's about going after that person or those people who leaked this story and shutting them down. And this canard that it endangered American life is, there's no evidence for this. He's not. Yeah.
Well, the news conferences that Eric Holder and the White House held yesterday were interesting. This is White House spokesperson Jay Carney questioned Tuesday about the AP spying scandal and the Obama administration's prosecution of whistleblowers.
This administration in the last 4 years has prosecuted twice as many leakers as every previous administration combined. How does that reflect balance?
I would say that the president is committed to the press's ability to pursue information, to defending the First Amendment. He is also, as a citizen and as Commander-in-Chief, committed to the proposition that we cannot allow classified information to be that can do harm to our national security interests or to endanger individuals to be leaked, and that is a balance that has to be struck.
But the record of the last 4 years does not suggest balance.
That's your opinion, Ari.
No, it's twice as many prosecutions as all previous administrations combined. That's not even close.
I understand that there are ongoing investigations that preceded this administration, but again, I'm not going to. I can tell you what the president's views are, and the president's views include his defense of the First Amendment, his belief that journalists ought to be able to pursue information in an unfettered way. And that is backed up by his support for a media shield law, both as senator and as president. And it is also true that he believes a balance needs to be struck between those goals and the need to protect classified information.
And the questions of Jay Carney about the spying scandal on AP just continued.
As a principle, does the president approve of the idea of prosecutors going through the personal phone records and work phone records of journalists and their editors?
I appreciate the effort to generalize the question, but obviously that goes right to the heart of some of the reporting on this specific case. I can tell you that the president believes that the press, as a rule, needs to be to have an unfettered ability to pursue investigative journalism. And
how can it be unfettered if you're worried about having your phone records?
Well, again, I can't respond to this in the specific, and I am very understanding of the questions on this issue, and appreciate the nature of the questions, and I think they go to important issues, and they go to the fundamental issue of finding the balance between, when it comes to leaks of classified information of our nation's secrets, if you will, between the need to protect that information because of the national security implications of not protecting them on the one hand, and the need to allow for an unfettered press and in its pursuit of investigative journalism.
That is Jay Carney, the White House press spokesperson who used to be the Washington bureau chief of Time magazine. Your response, Chris Hedges.
Well, I find, all of these measures to essentially shut down the freedom of information, including the persecution of Assange and Manning, as symptomatic of a reconfiguration of our society into a totalitarian security and surveillance state, one where anyone who challenges the official narrative, who digs out cases of torture, war crimes, which is, of course, what Manning and Assange presented to the American public, is going to be ruthlessly silenced. And I find the passivity on the part of the mainstream press, publications like the New York Times, The Guardian, El País, Der Spiegel, all of which, of course, use this information and turning their backs on Manning and Assange to be very short-sighted for precisely this reason. If they think it's just about Manning and Assange, then they have no conception of what it is that's happening. And everyone knows within the administration, within the National Security Council, the effects of climate change, the instability that will cause, the economic deterioration, which is irreversible, and they want the mechanisms by which they can criminalize any form of dissent. And that's finally what this is about.
And what do you think allowed this to happen, Chris Hedges? You think it's related to, you've suggested in your piece, the war on terror, that it gave kind of sanction in a way to this kind of crackdown on journalists? Well,
it becomes the same paradigm in the war against communism. It's an excuse to ferret out and destroy legitimate movements that challenge centers of power. And that's, of course, how the war on terror has worked in exactly the same way. But we are seeing environmental activists, Occupy activists, people who function like Manning as a whistleblower being caught up in this war on terror and silenced through these rules. So what they do is they pass for instance, Section 1021 of the NDAA, they pass it in the name of the war on terror, but then they can use it. Anybody can become a terrorist. I mean, in the trial in federal court, which we brought against in the Southern District, we used in the Stafford leaked emails that were put out by WikiLeaks, where they were trying to link a group that was close to Occupy U.S. Day of Rage and Al-Qaeda. That's precisely what happens. So when we allow this kind of thing to go forward, we essentially shut down any ability not only to ferret out what's happening internally within the mechanisms of power, but to protest or carry out dissent.